Yep, I'm going to be selling all of my stocks. But don't worry, this isn't because I've got some insider knowledge that the economy is going to go tits up in the next couple of weeks. It's for much simpler reasons than that. I opened up my first stocks and shares ISA when I was about 18 years old, and whilst I didn't really do much with it for the first couple of years, from about mid-2020 onwards, that's when my passion for investing really ignited. At the time, I bought shares from about 20 different companies, some of which I still hold today. But I must admit, a lot of these shares I bought without really doing my research and just invested based on what I'd heard online or from other people. My point being is that I didn't really understand what made a good investment and why I was investing in certain companies. Fast forward to today with an additional 4 years of investing experience under my belt and a portfolio of around £93,000, and it's made me realise I still have no idea what I'm doing. But I found that even if I've done these background checks, I'm still left with a lot of uncertainty before I've actually done the deed and bought these stocks. Sometimes I'll invest in a company that will go on a lovely upward trend for the next few years. Other times it just does nothing and doesn't grow, or worse, falls in value. But what's clear is that I'm not beating the market. But it turns out I'm not the only one. Research shows that less than 10% of managed funds fail to beat the indexes that they were benchmarked against over 10 years. But wait, hang on. Aren't these fund managers supposed to be the experts? I thought the reason that we were paying these funds an additional fee was so that they could go out and beat the market and give us more bang for our buck. And it turns out most of the time they can't. So if I don't have the skills or the knowledge to beat the market, and fund managers can't beat the market most of the time, why not just invest in a fund that matches the market index? The more I think about this, the more I like the idea. I do really care about how I invest my money and making good returns, but I don't come from a finance or economics background. And sometimes I just find all of these acronyms and investing strategies all a bit much and a bit confusing. I'm also getting really bored of reading these speculative and conflicting articles about why one journalist thinks a share is overpriced and another journalist thinks it's the deal of the century. So for the foreseeable future, I've decided that I'm not going to be buying any more individual stocks, and I'm going to be slowly selling off the stocks that I do have when the time is right and redirecting that money into funds that match their respective market index as closely as possible. For example, I will be drip feeding my money into funds replicating indexes of certain economies like the US, India, and the whole world economy, as well as certain markets as well, such as semiconductors and defense. The S&P 500 has had an average annual return of around 10% since its inception in 1957, and the FTSE All-World Index isn't far behind, with an average annual return of 8.5% for the last 20 years. Other industry indexes like the Semiconductor Index has had an average annual return of 29.5% in the last 10 years, and the Market Vector Global Defense Industry Index has seen a 60% rise in its share price since its inception in 2021. If you're investing in a market, all you're really betting on is whether the total overall value of that market goes up in price. And if an individual company in that market goes bust, well, it doesn't make a huge difference to the market's overall value. But if you're investing in a single company and that company goes bust, you've lost everything. And this is why I want to be investing in market indexes rather than individual companies. Now, I'm not expecting an average annual return of 29.5% for my own portfolio. If I do that, I will set up my own hedge fund. But let's be conservative and say that trends continue around 9% per year. And I continue being able to max out my ISA portfolio of £20,000 a year. This means that in 10 years' time, it will be worth £500,000. 20 years' time, it's going to be worth around 1.5 million. And in 30 years' time, it's going to be just shy of £4 million. While this may seem ambitious, no one knows what's going to happen over the next 30 years. So why not be ambitious? Plus, if things go tits up and the whole world economy collapses, well, we've all got bigger things to worry about than our stocks and shares. So for the foreseeable future, that will be my investing strategy. Now, I know many of you probably won't agree with this strategy. And if you don't agree, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments. For everyone else that's on their investing journey, my only advice would be to keep a track of how the individual stocks in your portfolio are performing against their relative market index. For example, if you hold a number of pharmaceutical companies in your portfolio, how do those individual companies compare to, say, the S&P Pharmaceuticals Select Industry Index over a 10-year period? If you're not beating the market consistently year on year, maybe it's time to consider investing in a market index instead. Before you go, I'd really appreciate if you could like the video and subscribe if you aren't already, as it helps the video find more people and helps put a smile on my face too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.